I don't know how
All
it
right.
works.
Hey, do you want me to use your last name or just Ryan O?
No, you can use my last name. I don't hide anything.
Okay. Again, just fucking like I don't know what I know you got your Instagram and all that stuff. There's your name's floating around out there, but again,
yeah, I mean,
dude,
like I'm already. I know some people were like about Russia and shit, but like I'm already on an Iranian like state-sponsored hit list, so I mean, it is what it is.
The following show is being broadcasted from an undisclosed location. Two former special operators have combined their badassery and now sharing it with the world.
They ain't alive no more.
All with a beer and a smile. This is the Savage Actual Podcast. And now your hosts, combat vets with 20-plus deployments between the two of them and enough testosterone to operate the power grid of Los Angeles. Savage Actual. Now your hosts, Jason and Patrick.
Welcome to the Savage Actual Podcast. I'm here with my good-looking host, Mr.
Patrick Waltrip, the best-looking one out of both of us.
That's right. We have a special guest. We'll let him say his own name. What's up, man?
Not too much. I'm Ryan O'Leary. Just seeing what's up.
Yeah, Mr. Ryan O'Leary came across our radar not too long ago, and he is from my neck of the woods. I'm from the Midwest as well, from Kansas. He's from Iowa. I've got relatives in the Cedar Rapids, Des Moines area, and he ended up joining the Natty Guard and did some time with them for a while, and on over to the Louisiana National Guard, and then got a wild hair to live an adventurous life and do a really cool thing, man, in my opinion, to fight against ISIS, supporting the Kurds, whom I fell in love with when I served in Kurdistan for a few years. And now he is currently in Ukraine fighting against Russia. So we have a pretty unique guest here, and we can't wait to hear your story and get your story out from our perspective, man. So welcome to the channel.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here. I haven't done a podcast before, so this will be interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, shit. You're on the best one, man.
Perfect.
Absolutely. It's super interesting, man. Savage Actual, don't censor yourself. No need to do anything different, man. Just be you. Jason and I are us. We're a pair of fucking idiots, basically. And, we're just going to bro out and talk and have a good time, man. Learn about what you're doing. And you got an interesting story, and we're super glad that we could take some time to talk to you.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm glad there's no censorship. You'd have to pay somebody a lot of money because I cuss all the time. So
you're in good company, my friend. I mean, the combat arms MOS. I mean, between the three of us, we got a few books worth of stories to tell, I'm sure. So, yeah, man. I guess we'll kind of do it like we usually do. You know, we go back in time, man. So, you know, you grew up in the Iowa area, is it Des Moines or Cedar Rapids? I can't remember.
Yeah, I grew up in the northwest part of Iowa, like rural families, like farming communities, small towns, you know, like less than 10,000 people. So grew up, I guess, redneck, whatever you want to call it. Not really, but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I grew up there, just small community. A lot of my relatives served in the military, so that's what I did after high school. And I don't know, it was a good experience for a lot of it. Growing up was good, small town living is the best. Like, big cities are cool, but like at the end of the day, if you want like families and like be a part of your community, you just get a lot more of it in the smaller communities, I think. So
agreed.
I like my childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
What year did you graduate, man?
So I graduated in 2005. I did the early entry into the Guard, so I actually signed in November of 2004, and then I graduated in May of 2005 from high school. So,
hell yeah,
nice.
Went to Fort Benning.
You were an 11 Bravo?
Yep. Oh yeah, Fort Benning all the way, Sand Hill, Foxtrot 258. I don't think. Does anyone ever forget what their basic training unit was? I don't think they do.
I did.
No,
I did actually.
Really? You don't remember?
platoon number was 3126, and I just broke out my fucking yearbook, the Marine yearbook for boot camp, and I remembered like Lima. It doesn't really matter, dude, but yeah, I forgot, but I remembered it's seared into my brain what the platoon number is for sure.
Oh, for sure. Like, but that's like 3rd Battalion. I was 2105, 2nd Battalion, freaking Paris Island. Like, you 100%, man. It's just such a distinctive time in somebody's life. You can't forget that stuff.
I think I know the answer to this, man, but I want to hear if you agree with it. In 04, I was in my second deployment to Iraq in Fallujah. So did that time and space in American, newsreels and your buddies and probably older guys in high school going over to join and to fight, did that have a play in your reason to join?
Not really. So I was looking at joining probably since I was at least a freshman. So, my grandfather on my dad's side was in the Navy during like World War II at the end of it, and then a little bit into Korea. He always basically said he played golf with POWs. He was in the Great Lakes area during the war and whatnot. I don't know what he actually did. He never really went into it. And then, I had some uncles that served in the Navy, and then my grandfather on my mother's side also served for like 30 years in the Naval Reserve out of Nebraska and stuff. So it was just something I always wanted to do. I always believed like the military, like we live in a free country due to our military. So I thought it was something that I felt that I had to do no matter what. So I think it's good for people to serve. I don't know if I'd ever say like I regret being infantry. I think it was a good life lesson, but the career fields are a lot lower outside of the military. But there's a lot of interesting careers you can do in the military. But like I don't regret joining. I think I would have went active if I had to do it a second time around, and like 3 years active duty and then like green to gold or something. But I don't regret joining. The Iowa Guard's actually pretty good too. They take care of their soldiers. We always had the Gucci gear. Afghanistan, we showed up rocking multicams in 2010 with ACOG M4s and the MK46s or whatever, the Mini 249s. So
yep. Well, that's awesome. That's super awesome. Important, man. That having the latest and greatest gear makes things a little bit better. When you're dealing with super old shit. That sucks. So
yeah, it was awesome.
Good on Iowa for that.
Yeah, they spend a lot of money on their equipment and stuff, so it's good. They treat their soldiers well. At least they did when I was in. I don't know, the last 10 years.
But. Good. So, what made you do that transition? You were in the. Did you deployed too while you were in the Iowa Guard? Correct. You went to Iraq.
I went to Iraq. I was 708, and then 2010 to 11, I was in Afghanistan. I was in RC East. 2010 to 11. So, and then the reason I went down to Louisiana is I actually got married. So,
so talk about those deployments a little bit. What I would have to assume that your time in Iraq kind of put that drive into you a little bit to come back and do some of the things that you're doing now. Am I correct in that assumption?
No, actually, to be honest, Iraq was a shitty deployment for me. Probably like 6 months in, I had some PTSD issues. I ended up going back stateside, and just actually like fell down a fucking rabbit hole for quite a while, to be honest. Probably up to like 2009, probably like early 2000, mid 2009, and then basically actually. My commander from my unit basically pulled me aside one drill weekend and was like, "Hey, you're being a fuck up." Basically, he's like, "I want you to go on this next deployment, but you got to unfuck yourself." And I was like, "All right, time to quit being a fucking drunk and everything else." Shaped myself up. And like 6 months later, I was on the deployment list for 2010 to 11. So the Afghanistan deployment was, I think, more of a, I'd say, beneficial deployment because like. Iraq, we didn't really see what we were like. We'd go out and fucking deal with the Iraq army, shooting at the Iraqi police, shooting at civilians, shooting at each other. Like, Iraq was a fucking shithole in 2007, 2008. And I don't know. I wasn't a very big fan of Iraq. I am now that I got to go back when I wasn't with the U.S. military, and you can actually see the changes that, the locals had. Because, like, I worked with Sunnis. the Kurds and some of the Shia too. So I mean, but like at the time, I was just 19, 18. Let's see, 2000. I've been like 19. Yeah, Iraq for me was not a good deployment, but
I mean, that's pretty young to be jumping into something like that too, man. To be 18, 19 in a war zone and not potentially not getting sort of the direction and the awareness of the situation and what's going on. And I'm sure it was total fucking chaos, for being 18 in that situation.
Yeah, and like I mean, like honestly, like Iraq, you never knew what the fuck your mission was. Like I mean,
Yep.
it was we're here to fight terrorism. It was like who's the fucking terrorist? Is it the Iraq army who went in and shot at the village, or is it the Iraqi police who shot at the Iraq army who then sparked a fucking sectarian thing? Like Iraq was just everything was gray. You'd go ask your command what the fuck's going on, they wouldn't have a clue. Like I mean. Iraq during the troop surge was just a clusterfuck, to be honest. At least from my point of view, because like we're at the tail end of that. So,
Yeah, I've heard that. Absolutely. Like Patrick said, he nailed it. I look back at when I deployed to Iraq the first time I was 23. I can't imagine my mindset at 18. The strategic level, a young and dirty enlisted guy. E1 to E4 for the most part, and you're so disconnected from the higher level of decision making. You don't even hear it. You don't even hear the whispers and the thought process of a decision being made. You're so disconnected. So I could totally
and like
feel
a lot of it too is it's just I don't know. I just don't feel like there was like looking back on it. I think it was more of a frustration type deal, and then just nobody having a clue what the fuck was going on. Like it'd be like, oh, go on tower guard, and it's like, well, your ROE for the tower guard is this, and this, and then like fucking, it's just a fucking Iraq was just a clusterfuck.
Yeah,
I think we got it right.
So you got back from that deployment. You said how long was it? It was a couple years later that you went to Afghanistan.
Yeah, so I went to Afghanistan about 2 years, roughly 2 years after I got back from Iraq,
Okay.
2010 to 11. I was in Paktia over off of, so I actually deployed in 2010 with a PSD unit for the 168th, one of the 168. We ended up not doing, so we actually flew into Afghanistan, and like the day we got to our FOB, we went out on a mission, got in a fucking massive firefight, which was awesome. And then after that, our brigade commander basically was like, well, I'm going to fly to these places. So he mainly, started doing more of the aerial, like taking a helicopter to the smaller AFCOPs and stuff. So we actually transitioned from being like PSD to like route clearance, EOD, just general fuckery, I guess you could call it. Which was, I mean, it was cool though, because like since we were PSD, we didn't have we had our brigade commander as our main officer. And then we were under HHC, but no officers would go out in the field with us. Our highest ranking out in the field was a fucking staff sergeant. So
Jesus Christ,
it was like they would rotate lieutenants through. So like there was some injuries and stuff, and so like officer would get rotated in and out. So we'd have like an officer, like a lieutenant, like first lieutenant for maybe like 3 weeks, and then they'd send them to one of the infantry units. And like the whole time we're doing like we're going from like FOB Gardez, FOB Lightning up to like Don Patan at the Pakistan border, or down to like Ramenkel, Zormont, and so like it was just we had a lot more freedom, I guess, because like I said, our highest ranking on the ops was typically a staff sergeant or our E7, like sergeant first class guy, basically sat at the talk and would man the radios for us. So like our con ops and everything were planned by like myself and some of the NCOs. Like I would go into the talk and we'd try to figure out the air support situation and shit. It was interesting. There was more hands on. So it was, we had an actual mission. Like if there was a black route, we'd usually try to drive down it to clear it. So it was.
How long was that deployment total?
Total, it was 12 months. And then, your 30 days
wow.
after that we took, so it was like 13 months total after you get like your month vacation if you didn't take leave. So,
yep. Damn.
So you get back from that wild deployment. I mean, it sounds like Afghanistan for sure. And it sounds like you had some, I don't know, like having just the dirty enlisted dudes, not very high ranks directly under your main guy at such a high rank. Sound like you had some freedom in a lot
Yeah,
of
like
ways.
I think a lot of people were jealous of us that deployment because, like, I mean, like if we wanted to go do a mission, even if we didn't have like, if the command from like HHC or brigade didn't have a mission for us, we could just literally submit one, and like we'd go do it. Like be like, all right, tomorrow let's just go fuck off to the Afghan Pac border, go see what's up with Alpha Company, or go down to Charlie Company in Zormont, and then we'd go, or we'd just link up with the Afghan police and go run ops with them. So I mean, we had a lot more freedom. Like we weren't micromanaged as much, so it let us. And because of that, because we didn't really have an officer all the time, it let the lower enlisted actually learn what was going on. So it was just a little bit better deployment. I mean, like everyone knew what was happening. So we got in a lot of fights too. Like we got shot at quite a bit. We actually took our. So I ended up running like the lead vehicle. I think it was Guardian 1. It was basically a Cougar MRAP. And we had a mine roller on it. We actually found out that the U.S. Army at the time had light kits you could order. So we ordered like 6 of these fucking light kits and mounted them all on the front vehicle. So we'd do night ops, and basically what we'd do is we'd flip these fucking light kits all on, and you could see us from like fucking 15 miles away. It was ridiculous. But I mean, it was hilarious because like they just shoot all at you, and then fucking the back 3 trucks would just unload on them when they'd shoot at you. So it worked out great. I mean, I had a blast. Like it was like we had our restraints, obviously, like we had our ROEs and all that we'd follow. So, but like at the end of the day, it was like like they mortared like the Afghan police one day. I was like, okay, let's go fuck these guys up. So we drove into the village that the fucking where we thought they would be at, and you set up a hasty TCP and you just sit there and search vehicles. Well, like we found RPGs in the back of a vehicle, so we had to call the Afghans and all that, and then like. There was way more freedom.
Wow.
It was fun.
That's awesome.
I'm going to start calling you Bait, man. That's my new nickname for you.
So if you actually ever talk to any of my guys, especially the PSC ones, we got called out to, what's the name of that fucking village? It was a village between Fob Gardez and Don Patan, up where our Alpha Company guys were. We got called out to go find an IED that somebody had called in that, like, oh, we found an IED. We spent like 2.5 hours walking through those shit fucking canals that they all have. And like, we finally got tired of it. So actually, I ended up crawling through the fucking culverts and we found it and I just yanked it out of the fucking culvert. So, I mean,
Jesus Christ, man.
It happens. It was a good deployment. Like, I had a blast. I mean, it was chaos.
I don't know if Bait would be good. Maybe Lucky would be a better fucking nickname. Holy shit.
Or Lightning, riding the fucking lightning, man.
Another time we walked into a minefield. That was pretty interesting. Also with EOD. Like, they're like, yeah, you guys are in a minefield. I was like, well, now we're fucked.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What would you say to kind of wrap up your military career? What would you say was the gnarliest tick that you got into? It was the craziest, firefight.
When I was in the U.S. military in general.
Yeah, I was like, you wrap up your military career, he's still running and doing it.
No. I mean, this is what you're doing now. It's way gnarlier, dude. Obviously, no. Just
in your
Army
deployments, yeah,
National Guard, yeah.
The Guard one, I would say, like the first day we got into Gardez, that first op, because like, dude, we were all green as fuck. Like, I mean, even the guys deployed, it was like a good hour and a half, 2 hours of the firefighting, and our front vehicle got hit with an RPG, our back vehicle got hit, like we got fucking smashed. Nobody got killed, nobody got injured, but like they destroyed like everything we had. And like the first fucking firefight, they shot the crow turret, they fucked everything up. The Taliban guys up there could fucking fight. Like the Haqqani guys, it was such like every ambush we got, like every time we'd hit an IED, it'd be like just pour fire from every fucking mountain.
I've read a lot about the Haqqani network, man, and that family and the money it's tied to, and
those guys had
off limits in Pakistan, but they come over the border and do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, I mean the Haqqani network has direct ties to the Pakistani ISI. They're the guys that held fucking Bergdahl for that
yes they were
period of time. Yeah, those guys are the real deal, and all their fighters have been doing it for as long as they've been alive, basically. you know?
Yeah. And they'll still do that. I mean, now that they run the country or whatever, they're still going to be terrorists. There's no
Well,
change.
now they're just like fighting fucking ISIS. So these guys, like, they're just like, well, nobody's invading us right now. Let's turn in and fucking fight each other. So, like, whatever, have at it, man. Place is a fucking
Let them kill
shithole.
each other.
Yeah.
So you bounced from Iowa National Guard, and you said you ended up in Louisiana, huh?
Yeah, I ended up in what number was it? I can't remember. It was the Black Sheep Brigade out of Baton Rouge. I was down there, actually met my wife before I deployed, and then we got married. It was a spur of the moment thing. Got married on my 2-week leave.
He's like, I went to Mardi Gras and came home with a wife.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it was sort of, yeah, close to it. I'm not married anymore. I'm divorced, but I was down there from I was down there from
we've all got one of those.
2010 to 2014. I was down there. Got divorced mid 2014. So she's doing good. I think she has a kid now in real estate development or something. But I haven't talked to her in probably 5 years.
Yeah. How was that experience?
So you get back from? Oh, sorry, Jason.
Same thing. Yeah, he was going to say, how was your experience with Louisiana, man? How long did that last?
Louisiana was good. I mean, I drank a lot, but it's Louisiana. But no, Louisiana was good. Honestly, so coming from the Midwest, we have a tight knit community. So I know I said small town communities are always better, but Louisiana, so I lived in New Orleans, and New Orleans, each block is its own community. So you have Treme, you have Ninth Ward, you have I'm trying to remember what the other ones, the Garden District. Each little section of New Orleans is its own little community. It was pretty cool because we lived in Treme, which was a somewhat of a shithole at that time. It was cheap living though. There was shootings and stuff, but the shootings were always typically if you were fucking dealing drugs or involved in that shit, and we were never involved with it, so we never got fucked with. But we'd hang out with the gang members. They'd have street parties and stuff. So, but it was cool. I like New Orleans. The culture, Southern culture, is insane, especially when you get down to into the Cajun or the Creole areas. The Coonasses, whatever you want to call them, because you go across the river into Covington and further up, or even down in the bayous. It was cool. It was a different experience. I'd never been outside of Iowa since before that, so it was a good eye awakener, I guess you could say. Yeah, I had a blast down there though. Loved it. Every place in Louisiana I've ever been to was great, except Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge is a little but
I think we all have friends that we can think about that are from Louisiana, and honestly, man, every one of them that I'm friends with are really good dudes. Just good people, good eats. They love to eat. They love to cook out.
Yep.
They love
the food's amazing.
Yeah.
Red beans and
Fishing's
rice,
amazing.
Fucking all that. Yeah, we did fishing down there. The only thing I hate is coming from Iowa, you can drive where I'm from, you drive 10 minutes in any direction, you're at a river or a hunting place. But living in New Orleans, you got to drive for fucking an hour. It sucked, but
yeah. So I know you said this a little earlier, man. You did I hear you right? You said you went AWOL from the Louisiana National Guard. Please do tell.
So I think
I'd like to hear your thought process, man, because obviously you said you went from there back to Iraq. So what sort of was the spark to drive that to make that?
So the biggest thing was, so how do I phrase it? I would say I think I had a year left on my contract, maybe even I might have 16 months actually. But after Afghanistan, it was I don't know, something changed with the military in 2012, 2013 timeframe, where it went from adults acting like adults to being micromanaged to babysitting to fucking. I mean, the whole op tempo was changing because we were pulling out of Iraq. The troop drawdown started happening in Afghanistan, and it just seemed like the quality of newer enlisted was sort of shit. and like it would just flow downhill. And at that point, I'd been watching what was going on in Syria at the end of like probably midway through 2013. And then like January 2014, February 2014, started seeing the ISIS shit pick up. And, I was like, fuck this, I'm going to go fight. And then what really did is so when I was in Iraq, 07, 08, we had an interpreter who was actually Kurdish. I actually reached out to him on Facebook and I said, hey, what's up? He was like, hey, we're getting ready for war, whatever. I think at that point, ISIS had just taken across that border from Iraq and Syria. I think February, March time frame of 2014.
Yep,
and,
I was there at the same time, man. I was in Baghdad.
Yeah, and this guy was from Dahuk, and he was like, "Yeah, they're heading this way." And I was like, "Well, let me see what I can do." And I basically grabbed. I didn't even like call my command or anything. I basically just fucking used my savings, what I had in there, bought my plane ticket, and just showed up in Erbil. I literally brought like one bag of clothes. I think I had some of my old multicams from Afghanistan. I didn't bring a plate carrier, didn't bring a helmet, brought nothing but boots, one set of uniforms, and fucking what I was wearing. Landed in Erbil, met with the former interpreter, and then he was like, come meet my commander. I was like, sweet, let's do this. So that like kicked it off.
So that's just fucking mind blowing to me, bro. Like that's just so. We have the safety of Apaches and fixed wing and the military might of America, and here's this wild man from the Midwest, like, fuck it, guns up, dude. I don't know where the fuck I'm going, really. I'm going to land with a backpack, what I'm carrying, basically, a pilgrimage across the world to a foreign land, foreign culture, different color, different language, and you just show up. I mean, I
think in a lot of ways it's sort of like redemption, too, because like I said, I only made it like 6 months in Iraq the first time. I had some PTSD issues and shit, so I think, like, I didn't really think about it at the time, but like looking back, it was probably more of like, I got to do this. Let's go get it right this time. So,
what was their commander's attitude towards you when you showed up? Because I have to assume
it was more of like
obviously prior to you showing up, and there had to be. I mean, there was other people I know. I mean, we saw that stuff on the news. There was other people showing up to fight. What was their attitude towards having this American guy show up and say, "Hey, I want to help"?
So I got over there during the early part of it. So there wasn't a lot of other foreign volunteers yet. There was some that were in the YPG, obviously. I think Jordan Matson was the first one. I don't know if he was 2013 or like January. I think he was actually might have been 2013. But I mean, there weren't many people. There weren't many foreigners that were with the Kurdish groups or, talking. Like I talked with Fazl Bedwadi from like the ISAF, Iraq Special Operations Forces. I got linked in with those guys too. And at the time, there really wasn't foreigners. They were more of like, what the fuck? Like, why do you want to do this? And, a lot of them, to be honest, like the Kurds really got shafted when we were in Iraq. Like we did train them, but we didn't really train them like we trained the Iraqis. We trained like the Tiger Brigade or Tiger Division, which is like the more special forces side of the KDP, and then we trained the PUK side, like their not Nineveh SWAT, but what's the PUK SWAT group? The CTG counterterrorism group. But like we didn't really focus on, up training the full Kurdish military, like their Peshmerga, like we did with the Iraqi army. And all that. So, I mean, they were good to have somebody that they were appreciative that somebody was willing to come over and train. It was a clusterfuck because barely anyone in Kurdistan that was in the military spoke English. I picked up Kurdish pretty quick, though. Like Kurdizana, I'm like, I can speak, right now I probably can't speak it too well. But when I left Kurdistan, I was pretty close to, I would say working knowledge of the language. But the first few months, it was just utter chaos. I mean, I think at one point they got, within 40 miles of Erbil even. I think they were talking about shutting the airport down at that one time. Like, they got to Myanmar, in Guer.
I wonder really how close you and I were, because I was in Slamani and Soleimania at the time, and we were prepping to literally on foot if we had to leave, because it was Erbil first, and then it was Dahuk, and every one of our sites on the agency were prepping to fucking pop smoke because it was a real deal. And this guy I had in my car, I don't know if you knew this, in our small talk offline, but the dude in my car working for who he worked for, who I was protecting, made a call back to the Pentagon and said, basically, sir, if we don't drop armament tonight, Erbil's lost. And if that happens, Kurdistan's gone. So
Yeah,
that night,
I don't think people realize how close ISIS got to basically overrunning more than what they did in Iraq. Like they were,
yep.
if so, and a lot of people don't understand this too. So at the start of the ISIS invasion, the predominant forces that fought was the PKK, PKK, PJAK, and then the Iranian Kurdish Party, Sezmani Khabat, Kamala, and KDPI. They all sent their fighters out of the Kandil towards Makmur Guer front, and they sent some down towards the Kirkuk area too. And then you had Partizani Kurdistan that followed like a few months later. But those first initial groups that weren't even Iraqi Kurds were the ones that basically blunted the ISIS assault from getting past like the Nineveh Plain area. But I mean, yeah, at one point, like when I was over there were people trying to flee Erbil further east because like it was close to them getting overthrown. Like, I mean, it was, yeah, could have been a really bad, like we got lucky. They sort of started running out of steam once they hit the Guer Makmur front, and then that what's that fucking village just west of Kirkuk? Not Bashika. Oh, what was that? There was one village that just got stomped in, luckily, by the Kurds, and I think even like the Turkmen group that was down there. So
I remember the guy was on the phone call, right? I was in the front right of the seat, and he was talking to whomever at the Pentagon, and they're the ones that authorized the two F-18s to come down from Turkey to drop the armament on the 300-vehicle convoy of ISIS pushing into Erbil. And literally said, sir, if we don't fucking do this right now tonight, it's gone. It's lost.
Yeah, they would have lost.
That's when they came in, and that's when they came in and dropped I remember seeing the feed later of the amount of fucking ISIS ISIL Daesh fucking vehicles, and it was like circa almost 1991 on the highway of death. I mean, it was fucking bigger than that. It was insane, man. For as long as you could fucking see, it was this train of fucking ISIS guys, dude. So, you know, I was safe where I was at, dude, but you were right there in the thick of it, man, with zero support from
with
the Yanks.
AK and 2 magazines. Like everyone bitches like, oh, Ukrainians only give out 4 mags in an AK. Like try showing up in Iraq where they're like, here's a AK and like 40 rounds. Go get more ammo, you know, like fuck. Like when ISIS was first fighting, like a lot of like everyone thinks we gave all this stuff to Iraq and that means everyone should have it, but in reality, like the Kurds got shafted from 2000, from the initial invasion, like what 2003 or whatever, till we left in 2014. We absolutely shafted the Kurds. We didn't give them fuck all for their military. Everything had to go through like the Iraq government, which then, you know, mainly went to the Shias after 2014. Like we shot ourselves in the foot so many times in Iraq. And you know, ISIS never would have became a thing if the Shia government in Baghdad wouldn't have fucked off all the Sunni awakening councils. I mean, like, I fought in Mosul for a little bit, and you know, I actually, to be honest, I even fought with. Do you ever remember the Naqshbandi militia? Used to have a Baptist general that led them. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
So I actually at one point in time ran into some of those guys. So at first they fought with ISIS to get Mosul, and then ISIS basically started killing them. So then they fought against them. Long story short. But at one point we ended up on a front line with a bunch of these militiamen who absolutely hate fucking Westerners, which was interesting. But they basically were like, you know, if it wouldn't have been for the Awakening Councils getting canceled or like shut down, you know, ISIS never would have became a thing in Iraq because the Sunnis would have been policing their own areas like they were. But because the Shia government basically shit-canned all those Awakening Councilmen, and they didn't bring them into the fold, much like we fucked up and didn't bring the Iraq military into the fold originally. That's where that insurgency with ISIS picked up. So like Mosul could have been avoided. The shit in the Sunni areas could have been avoided if they wouldn't have alienated, you know, 90% of the population. But hindsight's 20/20 on that one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you, how long did you do over there?
I was there. So I think I went home at one point I went to, where did I go? I went to Europe for some deals trying to work some stuff with the Iranian Kurds for like 2 weeks. Otherwise, I spent from 2014 to the end of 2018 there. So like 4 years straight, roughly 4.5, 5 years almost. It was good though.
Wow.
Like I liked it. I mean, like once you and like that war actually was good. Like I mean, I learned a lot. I learned about explosives. Obviously, I build bombs now, but so like Iraq was good because I got to experience like the trench warfare. Obviously, they built berms too. They built tunnels. So like it was like a prepping for what's happening in Ukraine. We got hit with indirect fire all the time. At one point, where was I at the time? I was over at the Bashika front line near Lalish, where the Yazidi shrine and everything is.
Yep.
The one area that we were in just prior had gotten hit by like chlorine bombs and other shit. So, like, I mean, getting hit with indirect daily, ISIS would literally launch fucking mortars like 7-8 times a day because, there wasn't air support either much then either. Most of the air support was focused on the bigger cities with like the ISOF guys or the SWAT teams that were pushing like from the south up to the north and then, Telskov, Telfar area. So like getting indirect fire, getting shot at by fucking tanks that ISIS had that brought across from Syria. I mean, like it was intense. It was cool. It was the first time that I've actually gotten in combat where your enemy is like 5 meters, 10 meters in front of you when you're clearing buildings. So and then landmines. I mean, ISIS basically built landmines and placed them en masse everywhere they went. So like dealing with the shit I dealt there has helped me in Ukraine like extremely. So
what was your experience or your perception of the skill level of these guys as a whole of ISIS throughout the 5 years? Do you feel like as they sort of got killed off, were they less and less competent, or what was your feeling on that?
So when I was there, like 2014, 2015, 2016, I would say, you could tell that they were getting, like, by the end of 2015, you could tell, like, their good fighters were slowly getting degraded. But, I mean, like, when we were in Bashika in 2016, we were still getting fucking Chechen snipers that were just smacking, Kurdish or Iraqi soldiers daily from, like, 800 to 1,000 meters, too. I mean, it wasn't like
Wow.
the Kurd, like, and this is, like, guys in bunkers, that are sandbag bunkers with, like, a little slit like this big. And they're still smacking people in the face. So, I mean, like, a lot of people think ISIS is just a bunch of dudes running around sandals, but a lot of them were extremely well trained. They came from other parts of the world. I mean, I bet ISIS had members from every single country on earth easily. People from former militaries. When we were, when one of our units was clearing the Bashika, for instance, the fucking German passports, fucking German military ID, I mean, it's insane. Like, it wasn't just a bunch of jihadists who went to a mosque and fucking decided they wanted to go play army. Like, there was people that literally came from foreign militaries and they were training them. Their bomb making skills were fucking insane. Like, their V-bids weren't your standard put ammonium nitrate fuel in a truck with one detonator and blow it up. They had complex IEDs set up. Their skill level was insane at the start. And then once you saw, after they started getting bombed all the time, and there was the counterattack started happening. Their troop level, as far as their abilities, slowly got degraded. But they managed to counter that by just the sheer amount of fucking bombs that they would put in the ground. Like, it was like you'd walk into a village and every fucking house would have a booby trap in it. They'd put it in the fucking refrigerators. They'd put it under a carpet. Wherever they could put explosives and put a fucking tripwire in a detonator, they'd do it. It was ridiculous. So, like, a lot of people. Go ahead,
Ryan. Where were they getting the supplies, the munitions to make this happen? Like, how were they making this shit? And where was it coming from?
My understanding is the ammonium nitrate came from Turkey, obviously. The detonators, we found detonators in Detcore that was made fucking in India. I don't know. Like 90% of the shit that ISIS had, they were crossing the border from Turkey with, smuggling it across. Typically through like the Turkey-Syria avenue, not like Turkey-Iraq. But yeah, like mainly from Turkey. And then, obviously there's illegal arms trades that were happening between the, Syrian government, armies, and then ISIS as well too. Like oil, like I mean, ISIS would sell to everyone, and they'd buy from everyone they could too. But I would say 90% of the shit that we found that was foreign made probably came through Turkey.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy, man. You mentioned the CTG, dude. I was working with those guys and befriended their main guy, their number one guy, their sergeant major, and
They're
I'll never
pretty legit.
forget. They are, man. He spent a few years here in the States. I won't say where, but he did a lot of cross training here, and good human being, man. Spoke perfect English too. And the dude was like 7 foot fucking tall. He was like 6'5", 6'6". He's a giant, dude. But I'll never forget, man. I've told Patrick this story being on a flight line, and we were working, with some of the, it was like the PUK, I think that we were helping out with, or the PPK. I can't remember. All the acronyms fucking fall apart over the years, but
Yeah, PUK.
it was PUK. I got one of the flags. I was on the flight line, man, and I remember hearing so many times they were asking for heavy armament to take out these tanks and these fucking homemade armor fucking Mad Max vehicles, man. They were actually pretty badass for making it by scratch, and all they wanted was fucking laws. All they wanted was SMAs. All they wanted was fucking, RPG 7s or 12s, So fucking dudes on a, I'm on an airport mission and I see homeboy and his crew sitting 400 meters to my left at night, and the first bird comes in. I think it's ours. As it gets closer, I'm like, it's a fucking Russian C-130 variant. I'm like, what the fuck? And it lands, Russian flag, dude, which is kind of weird. It was, they weren't even hiding it. And back comes down, and I told my boys, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go say what's up to our boy. And he's like, dude, don't. I'm like, watch this. So I go over there, and that back ramp comes down, and I give homeboy a big hug. I'm like, what's up, man? And he wasn't weirded out. He's like, yo, man, I've been trying with you guys for a long time to get what I need to protect my people, and I got to protect my family. I got to protect my country. I'm like, dude, you know me, man. I support it. I'm not saying shit. And then there were like some Russian Spetsnaz looking dudes with fucking AK-74 SUs all kitted out. And I was just like, and they were like, what's up? And they offloaded a fuck ton of gear, man. And I went back, and this is where you and I aligned, dude, because about 2 weeks later, I almost walked off the base to fight with them. And I had two friends that I was working with. And the night I turned in my weapon and put it back in my cubby, it was the night I was going to walk off. One of them, like, literally at 10 o'clock at night, it's like, dude, I'm begging you, don't fucking do it. So I'm not saying
I mean,
it would have happened, but I felt after Yazidi, and I've never really hated an enemy, even in Afghanistan or Iraq, but ISIS was different. That was a complete virus too. For your listeners out there that don't know much about ISIS, just Google what they did. Google the videos of what they fucking done to people in torture. They were a fucking virus to humanity, man. Legit. I fucking hated every one of them.
Yeah, and like, I mean, that, like, I think, this is a big issue that you see now in Ukraine too. So the U.S. foreign policy, when it comes to, helping struggling democracies defend against, whether it's ISIS or a authoritarian or oligarchy, war footing from like Russia or wherever. The problem that we're running into nowadays is that we're too reactive. We're not proactive, and it shows with the Kurds. Like we royally fucked the Kurds, and honestly, if we would have listened to their pleas for help and like January of 2014, it could have saved probably tens of thousands of lives easily, because the Kurds are willing to fight. They've never not they could have just sat back and fucking Hook Erbil and just dug a front line there and said, fuck you guys, fuck Iraq, fuck everything, we're just going to hang out here and hold this line. But in reality, what they did is they said, what, fuck this, we know what ISIS is, the Kurds in Syria are telling us XYZ. So they went out and fucking fought them with whatever they had. You had people grabbing their goddamn grandfather's AK that hasn't been shot in 30 years. The last time it was used against was Saddam in 91 or 80, Iran-Iraq war. And they're fucking going out there with one magazine and 20 rounds that are probably 40 years old, and just fucking hoping for the best, And yeah, like our foreign policy when it comes to like using our military to push back against our enemies. ISIS was definitely an enemy of the U.S. It was, it's an enemy against everyone. But like, we're just too reactive sometimes. We need to be proactive. If that means we're warmongers, whatever, fuck them.
What do you think about the? I mean, this is actually for Jason and Ryan, because I never spent any time there directly engaged with ISIS, and that was never my experience. But ISIS K is growing in Afghanistan. I don't know. Have either one of you guys tracked on any of that stuff at all? Because I mean, yeah, the Afghanis are good fighters, but I mean, Iraq's basically almost been in the same position. And the freaking they just these guys are coming in and trying to take over fucking Afghanistan. I mean, how do you guys feel about what the potential is there?
I don't think like ISIS will never probably take a foothold in Afghanistan in a majority way. The biggest problem is ISIS got a foothold there because they're basically taking the disenfranchised Taliban or Haqqani or whatever jihadist group. But at the end of the day, most of the Pashtuns are going to stick with the Taliban. It's an ideology that they've been raised on since the fucking 80s. I mean, like, the Taliban ideology isn't fucking even like Afghani. The fucking their Deobandism is actually from like fucking revolutionary Islam from like India or some shit. But the Pashtuns aren't, they're not that like Wahhabi-ish type sect that ISIS is. I mean, ISIS is bad, the Taliban are bad, but like ISIS is batshit crazy, whereas the Taliban are just crazy. But I don't think you'll see them gain a larger foothold unless the Taliban really fuck up. And that's probably why you're seeing the Taliban now, making sure their main support base of crazies aren't getting annoyed with them, so they block the schooling for the girls. They're retrograding back on some of their more lax standards, because if it pisses off their support base, they're going to lose more. They'll go towards ISIS. If they see that the Taliban is weakening or softening its stances, the jihadists aren't going to stay there. They're going to go to what they see as like the next best, which will be ISIS. So, but I don't think
it seems like ISIS K is a slightly different animal than what was running around, Syria and Iraq at the time. They definitely don't seem like they have the ass behind them that, they did in Iraq, for sure.
No, I don't think they have the funding anymore. I mean, after ISIS fell apart in Syria and Iraq, their main cash cows broke, like a lot of people don't realize, like, people probably don't understand that just because ISIS was in Iraq and Syria does not mean the money doesn't go to Afghanistan or everywhere else. Because like a lot of these countries that don't have banking, especially in the Islamic world and like in the Middle East, they have what they call hawala, which basically you don't even need to move money. You give money to a middleman, he makes a phone call, you get a little number on a piece of paper, you go turn it into a person, that person then gives the money in the other country. Like there's no bank account. It's basically on a honor system of, if you give me 10 grand, I give you a number that says 86 on it with blah, blah, blah. You give that to your relative in wherever, Micronesia, and fucking they'll give you that 10 grand minus whatever that cut is, whether it's $500 or $1,000. Like, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. Like, there's money moving all the time that is not tracked, it's not traceable, and it's based off of an old honor system. I mean, Hawala's been around since the fucking probably for
we rolled up a Hawala courier one time near fucking Spin Boldak on the border, and this dude had just wads and wads of cash on him, and we're just like, what the hell? And he had a little black satchel with just all these names and numbers in there and just tons of cash. We're like, what the fuck is this? And yeah, that's when we brought it back. Our intel guys like, oh yeah, gave us the rundown about Hawala and the whole process for that. I was just like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like,
it's all just couriered cash around the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's Hawala in the U.S. It's in Europe. Like, I mean, when I was in Iraq, if I wanted to move fucking 20 grand, it'd take 2 phone calls. I mean, it's not that hard to do. As a foreigner, if you don't speak the language, you don't and you're not like in with the local population, it's a lot harder to get happening. But like, I mean, yeah, Hawala is, it's not just Hawala. There's a lot of other systems you can use, but like, yeah, once ISIS no longer had that oil revenue and whatever else they were doing in Syria with drugs or whatever, the other areas sort of lost all their fucking funding. It doesn't help that, ISIS and then Al Qaeda started fighting with each other. So I think if ISIS wouldn't have went around chopping everyone's fucking heads off and making enemies, they probably would still be around a lot stronger than they are. I don't think it's going to be a problem in Afghanistan. Africa is probably going to be the next biggest one, just because in Africa you have governments that disenfranchise their own people so much. Like Mozambique, you have the Mozambique government, then you have Renfro, and then you have the Islamists who are in like the northeast or whatever. Like all three sides hate each other. There's no government support. Like it's going to grow in those areas. Now that Wagner's in there too, it's just going to get worse.
Yep.
Yeah. So when did you wrap up Afghanistan, man?
You mean Iraq?
Iraq?
Excuse me, Iraq. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like November, December 2018.
And you said you went over to Europe for a while, and did you end up coming back to the States?
Yeah, so actually I went over to Europe in 2016, towards the tail end of 2016. I was actually trying to help get weapons brought over from a Eastern European country for the Kurds. It was successful to a certain extent. They got ammunition they needed, but they weren't able to get the heavy weapons. Predominantly because I think the State Department put a stop on that part of it. But basically, I went over with some representatives to just go ease things out and explain like what they were going to do with it a little bit more. Because like everyone thinks like for some reason like if the Kurds get this weapon or that weapon, they're always going to like overthrow the Iraq government or something. But at the time, they weren't even like the referendum obviously happened, but at the time they were more of like we need the rest of the ammo to fight ISIS, because at that point a majority of the ammunition, like even AK ammo and stuff, was going through the Iraq government. And they would say 100,000 rounds to Erbil, and then like 50,000 would show up and 50,000 would fall off the truck on the way to Erbil. So we tried to go get a weapons thing done for the Kurds. Like I said, they got the small arms ammo, and that was about all they got. But the lovely Russians filled in where they could on the rest, as well as China. So
did you ever have any run-in with the U.S. government while you were in Europe or trying to get back to the States?
No, I mean, I did back in the States, but it wasn't over like helping the Iraqi Kurds. It was over the Iranian stuff. I got rolled up. Like when I got back in 2018, I got put on like a fucking selectee list, which if people don't know, that's like quad S security check. So like when you go to airport, you get strip searched, you get fucking bomb swabbed. I actually got rolled up. I got rolled up in Jordan actually on the way back, and held for like 48 hours because they said I was a fucking terrorist. But
by the Jordanians?
Yeah. They basically thought I was on like a fake passport and shit. And I was like, what the fuck? Like it was like my real passport. It was just fucked up from being on me all the time. But the U.S. Embassy got that cleared up. And then basically when I landed, I just got picked up immediately by the Homeland and fucking everyone else under the sun.
So walk us through that. Literally walk us through.
So I didn't even think about it. Like I was just like, I'm gonna go home, hang out with my friends, drink some beer.
Yeah, you thought you're just like it's not like you're flying back from fucking Jamaica, man. Like holy shit.
Yeah, and like I mean, like so like when I was with the Iranian Kurds, basically we were doing cross-border operations into Iran, like putting IEDs at Iranian military checkpoints and other fun stuff, hitting IRGC border crossing areas, assassinating fucking IRGC officers in like Sna, Sanadash, those areas. So like, and this was during the nuke deal. And so like the American government was a little pissy, put it that way, put it frank. They were not there. I pissed in their Cheerios. But so I got back and basically got fucking put in a room with like 4 guys from like all different agencies for probably like 5 hours, I would say. And it was a lot of questions. I also spent like a year in the Kando, not with the PKK, but like the Iranian Kurdish groups.
Say that again. A year where?
I spent like a year living in the mountains in the Kando. The Kando is predominantly where the PKK are. But also the Iranian Kurds use that mountains to cross the border too. So yeah, I got hemmed up for. Originally, they were like, "Oh, you supported a terrorist group." And it's like, well, no, I wasn't with the PKK. So I had to actually explain to them the difference between the PKK and like Kamala and Kurdistan Democratic Party of Iraq or Iran. And like I'd explain like the 20 different Kurdish groups because like there's like
Did these guys have really any fucking any understanding of what you were talking about?
no, they had like no
Yeah,
idea.
I wouldn't think so.
I think literally somebody said, "Hey, this is his name. This is what he looks like. Go wrap him up," because he was in Iraq for 4 years. But everything was good, or at least I thought everything was good. Had a lovely interview. Gave him a rundown on all the Kurdish groups so they could have some information. And then, like, I tried to fly to one of my best friends from high school to his wedding, and got wrapped up at the fucking airport. I was like, so I went to the airport, and my first flight I show up there, and the little ticket counter, you type your shit in, and your ticket prints off. Type my name in, it says go up to the front desk. I'm like, oh, my name must have been spelled wrong or something. Go up to the front desk and give her my fucking ID. And like, she's like, 1 minute, sir, I gotta make a phone call. So she makes a phone call, and I'm just standing there like, whatever. And then like 10 minutes later, there's like 4 dudes that show up, and they're like, hey, come with us. I'm like, oh fuck, So like now, finally, like the light bulb finally went off in my head. I'm like, oh shit, okay, so this will be fun. Come to find out, I was like put on a selectee list, which, I mean, to me that sounds like you volunteer to go on it, but you definitely don't want to be on it. It sort of sucks. You get like quad S security checks, so they basically like shut down a lane of the fucking like the security point. You get escorted through it. They strip search you. Like I get bomb swab. Like it was a fucking pain in the ass. And then come to find out, I was actually like basically like one step away from being on a no-fly list, which, I mean, it'd been nicer to send me a letter, but
You're like, for fucking what? It has nothing to do with the airlines or you're flying. Like, what the hell? What a mess.
So was this all happening in Dulles in DC?
no. So that was actually, I went to fly out of Des Moines to my friend's wedding probably like 6 months after I got back, and that's when that happened. But I flew back in through New York actually originally, and got hemmed up in New York. It was interesting. Missed my flight, and then I had to buy a new one. They wouldn't pay for my ticket. That sort of pissed me off.
Of course.
Oh, really?
They take your cell phone and download everything off of it and everything else, So, but I mean, it was. I mean, like now when I go back, I just bring a blank cell phone. Like I also go buy a new one in the store. Usually mail my other one home or mail it to a friend's house, just so they don't fuck with me on my cell phone. They'll actually, when I took leave,
that.
it doesn't bother me. They know by now. But I took leave in May actually and went and bought a old Nokia, like a 4580, like the terrorist bombing ones, and just brought that back with me as a joke.
Dude, I'm with you, bro.
Dude, what you need is one of those like kids Fisher Price fucking like flip phone things. And then when they're like, "Where's your phone?" Just pull it out. They'll be like, "Shut the."
Well, like there's a lot of guys here who've never like done what like I've done before and doing now. So like they're all worried, like, oh, Homeland Security, what do I tell them? Like they're gonna go through my phone. I'm just like, dude, just mail your phone back. Put your sister's name as your, the person mailing it. Send it to your friend or whatever. And I was like, go out and buy like a Redmi, like a cheap Chinese smartphone. Draw a smiley face on your balls and just take a bunch of photos of it. And when you get to the airport, everything will go great.
I like it, man.
There's probably some pissed off TSA agent right now or Homeland Security agent because he's probably seeing fucking 40 guys' balls by now.
Yeah, they're all missing flights. So you wrap up Iraq with a bang. When does, like, walk us through that time frame of like, okay, I'm done with Iraq. You're either back in the States or wherever you're at, and then there's Russia. Or
So I got back in 2018. And I reached out to some of the guys that were in Ukraine currently, because there's been foreign volunteers in Ukraine since 2014. In 2014, there was a bunch of right-wing fuckheads over here. They lasted like 3-4 months, then they got sent home because Ukrainians thought they were idiots. And then like 2015, 16, 17, 18, there was actually decent ones that came over here, like Sean Pinner, Aiden Aislinn. God, there was like 7 or 8 guys who actually like made a career out of it over here. But in 2018, I reached out to some of them and I was like, hey, is the Ukrainian military still recruiting? And basically they were like, yeah, we'll give you the details. And so like I got home, I think it was like 2019, probably like February. They're like, okay, they're not taking foreigners anymore currently. They're redoing the like enlistment process for the foreigners. So I was like, oh, well, fuck, I'm not going to wait. I'll just chill here. I ended up opening up a company doing like agricultural construction and like cleaning out hog barns and like cattle lots and stuff with pressure washers. And basically just built a company there for a while. I opened a weapons development company where we built a modular hand grenade that we were working on getting through the U.S. SOCOM Hard Problems Initiative and a few other avenues. We were successful a little bit on it. Actually, like 2021, we got some feedback and stuff, but that was like late 2021. Everything is currently on hold. I might build them here in Ukraine. We'll see. But basically,
what's the deal with the hand grenade? What is it? What's different about it?
basically, so the U.S. A lot of people think a hand grenade is just a hand grenade, but it's not. You have like. So for offense, you don't want to use fragmentation because fragmentation is 360. It goes everywhere. So you want something that's more pressure. So basically ours had a snap lock so you could switch the sleeve from like more explosive to then having a fragmented shell. Because like the US's hand grenade, the M67 was developed like 71 or 60, 68 to 71, I think. And it's not that great of a hand grenade if you actually look at it. It doesn't it's pre-fragmented, which means like basically it's like pre-scored, so it's supposed to break up evenly, but it actually doesn't break up that well. So we actually did like interlocking sleeves, so like it's pre-fragmented, but it's to the point where it's loose, but it's not like jingling. So it had like ours had a higher dispersion rate, like 40% higher dispersion rate actually. And it took maybe like 4 seconds to switch from a fragmentation sleeve to adding, 200 grams of explosives, which, it would have been the initial charge plus the detonator. We had, I think it was like 98 grams of explosives in it. So you're looking at 300 grams of explosives, which is more than enough to either kill you or concuss you in like a 12 by 12 room. So we had that developed. We also built a modular claymore. So basically like light to medium skin vehicles, it basically shot you could swap the front plate and then it would be like an EFP or it could be fragmentation. So
Nice.
We're just working on the more modular designs, which was good. I used a lot of that experience to build like some drone drop munitions here, but I did that from like 2018. I basically just built businesses, ran it off that, got involved in politics in 2020, 2021 timeframe. Then I was it 2022? Let's see. No, probably mid 2021. I actually decided I was going to run for Congress for the North. It would be the 4th District, Iowa. I got like 8,600 signatures, and I think I needed 10,000 for the 2022 election. And that obviously, I didn't follow through with that because I ended up in Ukraine. Obviously, I don't know. Like I probably could have actually got the signatures and ran while I was fighting over here because I don't think that's probably something that's never happened before. But yeah, I backed out. That would have been
You probably would have won that.
Honestly, like the 4th District has been represented by idiots for a while. Like we have Steve King, who's basically a closet racist, and then his replacement. Feenstra is not exactly the most representative person of Iowa, I would say. But
so when you were home in between the Iraq deployment and heading to Ukraine, and you're doing these jobs and stuff, and obviously this would come up in conversation. I mean, especially if you're back living where you kind of grew up. It's a small town; everybody knows. Like what kind of reaction were you getting from people? Were they just like, "Hey, Captain Insano, you're back"?
No, I mean, like most people were just like they wanted to know what it was like. Nobody thought it was bad. Nobody really was like overly questioning why I did it or anything. They're just like, "You're fucking crazy."
That's the thing is like it's such a rural area too. I would think, like I said about you running, dude, it's probably a lot of very conservative people. You probably actually would have won that if you could have got the signatures. And even though you're still gone, you probably would have won that goddamn race.
Yeah, I collected those signatures in like 3 months. So, I mean, I could have easily got enough signatures to either get on the ballot as a Republican or a Democrat. Originally I was going to run independent because like I'm more of like a centrist. Like I'm conservative,
Yep.
but like I also believe the government needs to be, more social services to a certain extent. But I ended up going with the Democrats, but like I would say I was more of like a blue dog Democrat, so like the Tom Harkin era of Iowa, like conservative when it comes to like finances and all that, and
Yep.
then more open to, increasing welfare to a certain extent under this or that, and then, medical and all that stuff. So it was a little weird because like people are like, well, you're conservative, because I'm huge pro Second Amendment. And like I'd show up to these Democrat town halls, and they'd be like, "Oh, what is your idea on weapons?" I'm like, "More of them, fucking want to buy a weapon, go buy one. Obviously, buy one and get training. Go practice with it. It's a tool. If you're not good with your tools, it's not worth having." And so
There you go.
it brought up a lot of interesting conversations. I'd open carry or not open carry, but I'd have my concealed carry too. So I always carried a pistol with me to them if I was allowed to have it in the building. So. But yeah, a lot of people were like, what the fuck? But I mean, nobody was against it. They weren't like, oh, I'm not going to vote for you. It was more of like, just, I guess, something that they haven't had, because Iowa used to be a purple state. So we had Democrats, Republicans, and it worked out great. And then the Democrats started doing this, towing the national line instead of towing an Iowa line when it came to like, what's best for Iowa versus, and they do this. This is where the Democrats fuck up all the time. They do this in the rural areas where they just try to push this big city politics, and nobody fucking cares. Like nobody, like if you go to a rural town in Iowa and you say, we're going to do a gun ban and we're going to lock in this, fucking environmentally friendly bullshit, like nobody's going to listen to you, because like rural town Iowa, 90% of them own guns. They don't give a fuck about you wanting to ban guns. They're actually against it. And like the Democrats fuck up consistently in that they don't understand rural America. And on the same foot, the Republicans fuck up because they understand rural America to an extent, but they fuck up when it comes to the metropolitans and like the urban built up areas. So, but it was interesting. It was a good experience. I think like I like politics. I just don't like how extreme it is now in the U.S. It's like, horseshoe, and both sides are completely fucked.
Yeah. Agreed,
Amen.
man. I mean, it's something that Jason and I, we've talked about this quite a bit. We don't delve into the subjects in our podcasts or YouTube channel. We just don't talk about this stuff because it is so divisive, and
yeah, like debating.
There's such a hard line now in America, Yeah,
there's no debate anymore. It's either I'm right and you're fucking wrong and deal with it. It's like, well, where's the discussion? Like, you should be able to go to a town hall with a politician and sit down with them and have a fucking discussion, where instead nowadays you go to a town hall, whether it's Republican or Democrat, and somebody asks them a question. If they don't like the answer, instead of fucking saying, well, I believe this, they just fucking scream at them. And like, Ukrainians ask me all the time here, like, what is wrong with your political system? Like, they love democracy, but they're just like, all they see on TV is like the far left or far right pushing weird shit that even the Ukrainians like, what the fuck is this? So like, I don't know. I think in America, we need to get back to more of an understanding of like, just because this isn't your political ideology doesn't mean you have to fucking shout, talk it out. It's just, just because you don't like their fucking viewpoint doesn't mean they're not, they're still technically your neighbor. American's an American.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you're, kind of letting that slide a little bit. Your focus obviously now is where you're at. How, like, walk us through that fucking flight from, America to Ukraine.
So I basically so actually before I was coming to Ukraine, I actually spoke with, going back to Afghanistan. Do you guys know who Sami Sadat is? One of the Afghan commandos. So he was
I don't got
the
the name.
last general of the Afghan commandos before Afghanistan fell. I was actually had a flight booked and everything, and was supposed to fly out the day Kabul fell. So that was low point in 2021 because I missed it by like 2 days to go help out a little bit. But hindsight's good because probably got killed. But
Yep.
but I basically pulled the same thing I did in Iraq. I planned it a little bit better. Like I told my family this time, like, hey, I'm going to Ukraine. I'm going to go fight. This was in February. And basically,
This was right after the Russians went in?
nope, right before.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, because like they were massing on the border, it was going to happen. There's like, I mean, the U.S. is like, oh, they're not going to invade, but I think honestly, the U.S. knew like probably in fucking end of December, January is going to happen. You don't put 40,000 troops on your border and your neighbor's border to then fucking not go in. They already invested too much. But I flew into Bucharest with just a backpack. I had Dickies jeans, like 2 pairs of those, like the little cargo jeans, work pants, 2 T-shirts, and a sweatshirt. And that's what I flew into Bucharest for. I had a contact that I had met in Kurdistan, actually, a Polish friend of mine who was doing some work in Romania, and he picked me up in Bucharest. We drove up to the very far northeast border crossing of Romania and Ukraine. And basically, I got to the border. He dropped me off, and he said, hey, good luck. I'll see you in 6 months or whatever when I go back to Ukraine, because he was doing work in Ukraine. He was part of the OSCE, the monitoring group. I got to the border, and the Ukrainians were like, what the fuck are you doing on this border? Because, I mean, they don't see a lot of Americans walking up to a border crossing on the Romania side. So I was like, well, I'm here because I'm going to fight in the war that's coming. And they're like, what in the fuck are you talking about? And basically from there, I got brought into their little like border. Like you cross the border, there's a fence, and then you have like another fence, and then there's a building that you go to. So they brought me to the building, gave me some coffee, and like, all right, you got to hold on, like using Google Translate because nobody at that crossing spoke English. So got out the Google Translate and was like, yeah, I'm here because I'm going to join your military. And they're just like, what in the fuck is going on? So they made phone calls, and like probably an hour later, one of the female border guards was like, all right, I'm going to give you a ride to the bus station. You can go to Kyiv. And, or where did that? Yeah, they sent me to Lviv. So I got on that, took the train to Lviv, and then ended up hopping a train from Lviv to Kyiv. And basically,
Lviv is on the western side there, a little bit closer to Poland, right? Yep. Okay.
So I ended up in fucking Kyiv and was bumming around for like 2 or 3 days. And this was, I think, the 23rd or 24th. Anyways, fucking dipshits across the border, invade Ukraine. And at that point, it was basically you go to like the fucking, they were handing out weapons at certain areas in the city if you wanted to defend. So you show up, passport, all that good stuff. They're like, what in the fuck? They're like, whatever, here's your weapon, wrote down my passport number, whatever. Which I don't have that weapon anymore, and I never re-signed it back in. So I'm probably get fucked at some point on that. Hopefully the Ukrainian government lets us
So
slide.
did you like go to, I mean, I don't know if they have recruiting centers there or whatever. When you got to Kyiv, did you try to like locate a military recruitment center and talk to those guys?
Not right away. I just went to their the little locations where they were handing out the weapons to the civilians that wanted to defend themselves. Then basically hopped in with a bunch of dudes and rolled up to the fucking the west side of Hostomel for like 3-4 days, just getting shot at left and right by everything under the sun. And then basically that was when I think it was like the 26th or 27th. Zelensky did that thing where, hey, if you want to join, come across the border. We'll set you up with a unit, blah, 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 International Legion bullshit. And at that point, the guys were like, okay, you have to go to the new location. So they brought me to the nearest train station. I hopped on a fucking train again, headed west back to Lviv. Once I got to Lviv, I hopped off the train station, and there's fucking cops everywhere now, and like all the military. So I grabbed a Ukrainian guy, one of the police. I was like, okay, Google Translate, military commissariat, where is it? So ended up at a military commissar out in Lviv. The guys there are still like, what the fuck, foreigners are coming over. I think originally they thought like maybe 10 or 20 or whatever would come over. I don't think they were expecting like thousands. But anyway, I ended up in the military commissariat. They did like a brief overview, checked my passport to make sure it had a visa on it. They were like, oh, Romania, what the fuck? That was an interesting one. They're like, oh, you didn't cross from Poland? I was like, no. Then they put us on a bus. It was myself and I think like 5 others. And we got to the training base, Yavoriv, which ended up getting bombed like 2 days after we left there. Thank God I wasn't there for that shit show. So we got to Yavoriv. When we were at Yavoriv, they just were like, okay. They actually had it set up pretty decent to start for the amount of people that were about to come in. But so when I got there, there was a dude in a tent who was like, okay, come here. I'm military intelligence. We're going to run a background check on you quick. So like, ask your full name, show them your passport. I think they basically just Googled you or Facebooked you and checked your social media. They'd take a photo. I mean, because like they don't at that point in time, they didn't have time to like be like, okay, let me call Interpol.
So did they get any? Did you give them any information about your time in Iraq, or did they kind of figure that out themselves?
They Googled me and my name popped up, helping the Iranian Kurds. The guy was like, oh, that's good, fucking up Iran. I was like, yeah, cool. And then I brought my DD-214 and stuff with me too. So like I brought my documents showing who I was, because like I was in Iraq and there was a fuck ton of foreigners that'd show up. They're like, oh, I'm sniper. And it's like, well, I was like, well, you really aren't, because you can't prove it. So like I brought my DD-214 and then basically like all my Iraqi certifications and like my Iraqi military. Because like I had an Iraqi military ID and I had a Kurdish military ID. So I brought copies of those. Gave them all that, gave them my Iraqi documentation, which is in Arabic, so they couldn't fucking read it anyway. But they're sitting there with their fucking phone, Google translating it. And then they're basically like, all right, you need to go to this building. So I went to that building. Met up with 12 other people. There was like a Navy SEAL there, a Korean SEAL, some former Rangers. I mean, it was basically all mainly Special Forces guys. So it was pretty cool. They're like, well, what was your background? I was like, oh, I was fucking 11 Bravo. They're like, well, why are you with us? I'm like, just Google me. It's fine.
This has been Savage Actual. Jason and Patrick are 2 former special operations guys who interview interesting guests who talk about video games, airsoft, and military subjects. Basically, they drink a lot of beer, talk about shooter games, and have fun. What's not to love? We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And the fellas will be back soon. But in the meantime, find them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Savage Actual. Y'all be cool, and we'll see you next time.